What's up, everybody? The room is open. We've got a keynote we're going to kick off here in just a minute, but I'm going to give it I'll probably give it a minute or two. But as you come in here into the event, please go ahead and drop into the chat, say hello. Hey, I see Rick McGlinchey. I see Becky. Welcome. First time using the platform. Hopefully you're finding everything, Becky. Welcome to the main stage. If you're just coming here, welcome. We've got an exciting session for you today. We've got 2 action-packed days, 80 plus speakers, literally 50 plus sessions. We got Mickey Cloud there in the chat saying hello. We're going to bring him up on stage here in a minute. Mickey, of course, leads Sasha Group in Chattanooga. We're going to welcome him to the stage here in just a moment. Thank you to everyone who's tuning in from Pacific and from Central Time Zone. Obviously, a little bit earlier on your end. I appreciate you grabbing that coffee or that tea or that workout or whatever you do to energize to be here this morning. We're going to kick things off in just a moment. But again, feel free to say hello there in the chat. Let us know where you're from. Even drop your LinkedIn so we can stay connected after. Morning, Steve, from Cincinnati. Right on, man. Queen City. Now, the real question is Cincinnati the real Queen City or is Charlotte the real Queen City? Both claim the title, so I'm not sure which one, but I give it to Cincy since you're right there, Steve, and you said hello first. I see people filter. Mickey says Charlotte. Fair. I know we've got some people from Charlotte here today. Kareen, good to have you. All right, I'm gonna kick things off. Hey, Matt Hunckler here, founder of Powderkeg and your host for these 2 action-packed days. I'm not going to take too much time with the preamble because I've got a great duo this morning that we're bringing for our opening keynote conversation, and I can't think of a better duo to kick off Unvalley with. It's really a very Unvalley story, which you're going to hear in just a moment. But first, I want to give a huge shout out to both of these people for making time. They're both very busy people, but they're also really passionate about what's going on here in the middle of the country. Obviously, great to connect Silicon Valley, New York City, and the coasts with what's going on in the mighty middle and this rise of the rest that we're all experiencing. They've got a really interesting story to share, and we'll kick things off in just a moment. I want to make sure you know that you can find the chat here, ask questions. There's a Q&A tab. We want to get into Q&A as quickly as possible, so make sure you find that. It's in the chat, and just flip over to Q&A and type it in there, and I'll make sure we get into as many questions as possible. We've only got 30 minutes with Gary, but we're going to go even deeper with Mickey afterwards. So wanted to call that out, and I want to tell you why we're about to jump right in. People saying hello in the chat there. Love to see that. Thanks for saying hi. All right, let's switch things over and get right into it. You are here for Powderkeg Unvalley. I totally get it. It's exciting. We got more than 1,000 people registered to participate here over the next 2 days. And I've got 2 exciting guests that I'm about to introduce to you. Both of them, interestingly enough, I met in Nebraska, different cities in Nebraska, but I met both of them in Nebraska. Gary back in 2010 and Mickey back in 2014. We've got an amazing duo here. They have so much to share. Both of them, of course, bring a lot of thunder and pedigree to what they do. Mickey currently serves as the executive director at the Sasha Group, a VaynerX company, where he leads the Chattanooga office. And prior to his current role, Mickey joined VaynerMedia in NYC as one of its earliest companies in 2011, helping grow the company from a small social media startup to recognized leader in the advertising industry at large. And from 2015 to 2018, opening the company's off the coast office in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then secondly, to the stage, man who probably needs no introduction, but Gary Vaynerchuk, also known as Gary V, is the CEO of VaynerMedia. Gary Vaynerchuk is a serial entrepreneur and serves as a chairman of VaynerX and is the CEO, of course. Gary is considered one of the leading global minds on what's next in culture, relevance, and the internet. He is prolific in both angel investing and early investments in companies like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Venmo, Snapchat, Coinbase, and Uber, and is prolific on all of those platforms. I could go on and on about both of these guys, but I'm excited to have both of them here and want to kick things off. So please help me welcome to the virtual stage here at Powderkeg Unvalley, Gary Vaynerchuk and Mickey Cloud. Thanks, guys, for being here.
Thanks, Matt.
Absolutely.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to have this conversation because I've heard a little bits and pieces of the story, but I wanted to make sure we got the whole thing here for everybody that's kicking off on Valley bright and early for us. I'd love to hear how you guys met. Do you remember what that initial connection was like and how you knew there was a spark there?
Mickey?
Yeah, so it was fall of 2011. I was working in the advertising industry in New York, and one of the first people I ever met in New York at an ad agency job. She, Elise Bartlett, had moved away from New York and came back, and I was trying to help her find a job. She read. Her aunt maybe read The Thank You Economy, and on the last page of The Thank You Economy, it says, if you're interested in doing this type of work, email info@VaynerMedia. So Elise got hired pretty quickly in the summer of 2011 as the first employee that had come from an ad agency. Everyone else kind of at the time was just basically AJ and Gary's and folks that had kind of gotten into their world. And then Elise reached out to me and said, I want to catch up. I was like, great, let's get a beer. She said, can you meet my founder at 8 a.m. on Thursday? I was like, I wasn't expecting that. But I got an hour with Gary, and that I realized today is in 2011, it was.
I love it. Gary, do you remember your first impressions of that conversation with Mickey?
Yeah, I do. We had, with hiring Elise, and kind of just had Mickey, do you know exactly what month it was?
We met in September 2011. It was right after Labor Day. So it was right after you kind of clicked in full time.
Right. So Matt, the reason, and everybody watching, the reason I asked Mickey that is, that's exactly right. Literally August 23rd of that year, I decided I was going to go full-time VaynerMedia, because at that point it was really one foot in Wine Library, one foot in Vayner, my third foot in the emergence of Gary V with the books and the speaking, and then I had this incredible opportunity to start a vodka brand with a very, very, very famous person, and I was actually leaning towards that way the whole way. And then in late August, I had some time off, and I said, you know what? How is it possible that 2 years plus we've been doing this Vayner thing, and yet none of these agencies are still doing what we're doing, knowing how important it was? And so it became very obvious to me that was the right move. And so I decided to plug in, and I then went on the offense of, wanting to meet people from the actual ad industry, not just the disruptive DNA that we had. And Mickey was one of those first meetings, and I was, I'm quite intuitive, and to this day am comfortable in going with my intuition, and saying, hey, let's go deeper, let's go bigger. And, Mickey, I almost feel, I don't know if it was the second meeting or that first meeting, but like very quickly I was like, Mickey, what do you want? I went like, what do you care about in life? And like,
it was 20 minutes into the first meeting that you asked that question. And my answer was, I want to be back in the Southeast. Like, I want to leverage my experience in New York in advertising and bring brands and startups. And once I said that, Gary was like, well, then what do you think? Why are you thinking about interviewing anywhere else? Like, that's my world. And at the time I didn't really, I had watched maybe one video of Gary before I met him. I didn't know who he was. And so, we kept talking, and by the end of that conversation, I remember this so vividly. He said, listen, if you can come give me 4 years here and do the things I think you can do, and I do the things I think I can do, like in 4 years, we'll get you back to the Southeast. And I remember thinking, like, A, who is this guy that would like offer that? And then B, like, why do I believe him? Because in that moment we had, like, I just really believed him.
And that's kind of like, so much of what I think I'm about and what feels real to me are narratives that I do understand that a modern, cynical, practical, I don't even want to use it as a negative, society struggles with. But for me, when you're a purebred entrepreneur, and I mean like a purebred, like, it feels, the reason Mickey believed me was because I was 100% in belief and was articulating my truth. And I think, as I've gotten older, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, it's really become very clear to me that life is uncomfortably about perspective. And if you have good intent and you're capable, you're going to execute on a lot of things that don't make sense. To Mickey's point, for everybody who's watching right now, like, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to meet somebody 20 minutes in and start talking about opening up offices, but it genuinely felt right. And I think, to sit here all these years later and talk about that becoming a reality, those are the kind of stories that I hope inspire people who are listening not to be delusional and full of crap and think this is like, I always worry about people thinking like it's The Secret, right? You just say it and it happens. There's a lot more that goes into it than that.
Well, it seems like in a lot of ways you had a secret, or at least you were an insider in some ways, Gary, because I mean, you and I met in Omaha, Nebraska, where you were speaking on a stage in front of, I want to say it was 300, it was certainly less than 500 people. And Jeff Slobodski, founder of Silicon Prairie News, is the reason I was there. He's also the reason I think you were there. And the fact that you would fly to the middle of the country when you live in the New York City area, you're probably flying to the West Coast quite a bit with your wine business, to come and throw a wine party, to pour wine at a wine party at Big Omaha and just shut it down. It's like you already knew there was a big opportunity in the middle of the country. And then here comes Mickey saying, hey, I want to ignite things and bring things to the Southeast. It seems like, what was it about the middle of the country that clicked for you, and sort of the opportunity beyond traditional tech hubs like New York or San Francisco or even places like Austin?
Common sense. I think humility and common sense, a lack of audacity, a belief in curiosity, an understanding of humanity, all those things play out, right? Like, why? I mean, I'm from 100, my high school years where I probably refined my business skills were I lived in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. And for those that don't know, I mean, Hunterdon County, New Jersey makes Chattanooga and Omaha look like New York City. So I thought technology was omnipresent, and I understood that talent might be in the colleges or the neighborhoods of Middle America or South America, non-New York. By the way, at the time, New York wasn't even respected as tech.
Yeah.
Like it was joke the power. So I didn't think that people had calibrated yet that tech was oxygen, accessible, and that, the reality would be that great companies would be built everywhere. And to me, even at that time, Facebook was a Boston company with a kid from Connecticut. Pinterest was, a Pennsylvania company. Did they happen to decide to move to SF because that's where the development talent and the venture capital money at the time was? Yes. But, I think coastal audacity is a humongous business vulnerability, and it was just not something I was interested in being a part of.
Are there other advantages you guys think that having a company headquartered or having a headquarters in the middle of the country gives a company, or even a tech professional who's looking to plug into tech?
I think that there's a million advantages. I mean, there's cost advantages. Now you're going to start to see it go the other way. Now I'm more interested in having employees in anywhere and everywhere that allows me to mitigate my cost. I mean, when I ask Mickey to live in New York and work, it's going to be a different, Mickey or Schmicky or Sally are all going to think the same thing, which is like, what's my cost of living against my salary, against what I want to do with money, whether that's to invest or go on vacation. And obviously if your cost of living, I mean, Mickey and I even had this conversation it was a lightweight because I think we were just both long-term with each other, but there was an acknowledgement that like, oh, you know, it was probably more like a high five of like, yeah, you know, like I didn't ask him to take less money. It was more like, this is epic. You're gonna be able to have a much better quality of life in Chattanooga's cost compared to Manhattan's cost. You know, I think as we are now fully in an integrated Zoom and room kind of world, physical and virtual kind of world, the reality is that you know, you're gonna start to see a lot of disruption. You already see it with what's going on with humans and companies going to Puerto Rico, Miami, Austin. I mean, this is a very big moment in time of change.
In Chattanooga specifically, so I'm on the board of the executive board of the Chamber of Commerce. I'm on a couple of boards of nonprofits that are about kind of attracting talent and leveraging and building our entrepreneurial ecosystem here. And you know, those are conversations that, you know, the minute everyone kind of the pandemic happened and you know, maybe probably by late April, you know, May last year, we were having conversations around how do we attract people to Chattanooga now, because you know, I think PC Magazine called Chattanooga the -- place to work from home because we've got the fastest internet in the Western Hemisphere here. We've got great quality of life, hiking. You've got, you know, it feels like a big small town. Like you can connect with people and people want you to generally succeed here. And so, you know, we've been on the offense trying to recruit companies, talent, and it's a little bit of a different like economic development game where, you know, it's really easy to kind of track like, hey, this company has a second office here or moved its headquarters here and that created 8,000 jobs. It's much more difficult to track like 3 developers moved from Atlanta to Chattanooga to take advantage of this. But it's, you know, that's the dirt work that still needs to be done.
Is in terms of starting that office, I know culture is big to both of you. I would imagine that's one potential risk of starting an office that's not in the same location. How did you mitigate that risk as you branched out, started new hubs, and made sure it still had that Vayner DNA?
Well, so the strategy was we took 10 from our New York office. So essentially we announced, so we got recruited by Chattanooga to kind of open the office here. It was essentially a group of entrepreneurs reached out to Gary and said, I'll buy, you know, Ted Alling was the main guy. He bought 2,500 copies of Jab, 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 Right Hook, one of Gary's, I think, 3rd book. And in exchange, down for 24 hours to visit Chattanooga and texted me on that trip saying, you know, dude, I love Chattanooga. And we were talking about going to other markets. We were looking at Charlotte, Richmond, Raleigh, kind of places like that. But I was like, well, I'll go check it out. I hadn't been there since the 90s, but I'd grown up going to camp. I knew it a little bit. But
by the way, that was the best. That was the best part of the combo. I knew that intuitively. I felt something about Nooga, but I didn't know if I could get Mickey to go there. And like, I remember that combo as well. I was like, Mickey, Chattanooga, and he's like, I went to baseball camp there. I'm like, that's right. Some of the greatest memories of your life, right, boy? You know, it was like, that was a fun combo.
And so we kind of made the decision summer, fall 2014, and then announced it at the holiday party in 2014. And that like, hey, we're going to open an office in Chattanooga. At the time we had New York and we had San Francisco and LA. So we were like, all right, we've got the coast covered. We're going to open this off the coast office in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we want 10 of us to go from New York down to Chattanooga. And so at that point, you know, I had people coming up to me at the holiday party saying, hey, when can we grab coffee? I want to talk to you about it. You know, because some of the folks that we brought down, a lot of them, you know, some of them maybe to the Southeast, but a lot of them were just like, hey, this sounds like a great career opportunity and a fun thing to do to kind of be part of a founding team of an office. And so, you know, we ended up bringing 10 people down and then kind of have hired local talent around that 10 to kind of grow the office. So for that was, you know, that was a key strategy for a lot of our offices, Gary, you know, whether in the US, globally. And so, you know, it was certainly a way to kind of make sure we had the DNA transported from New York and the headquarters to this office. And then it was about like making sure that people knew that there could be connections. So Gary comes down to Chattanooga pre-pandemic, a couple times a year, and other people from the New York office that would come down and visit and make sure that there was still that connection.
Were there any uncertainties, or did you have any sort of fear about starting this office in the middle of the country that wasn't one of the traditional, top 3 LA, SF, New York cities for an agency like Vayner, or Miami even, whether that was from you or your leadership team? I'm just curious if there was some early pushback before you saw all this momentum and traction, Gary.
That's the beauty of not having a board or being publicly traded. I live and die on my decisions, right? So, no, I believed in it. I believe in it, and I'm sure there was whispers behind my back, but that's kind of, par for the course. I don't recall anything being too extraordinary pushback. Mickey?
Was there anything that surprised you about starting a Chattanooga office that you didn't expect?
I don't go in with expectations, Matt, in general. I think it's one of my great strengths. I think a lot of things played out the way I thought. I thought Mickey would be an incredible candidate for mayor of the town. I knew his personality. I knew his, disposition. I felt he was the right man for the job. That played out the way I thought. I think trying to think if there's anything, not necessarily, not anything that I can really think of. Maybe the fact that I wanted a direct flight situation quicker and easier. No, it's an incredible community. I would probably say I'm surprised we don't have more. That I would have lost that bet. I always thought about like Wichita and like, Des Moines. Like I think so much has started happening in a million different ways that we didn't end up having Louisville. I think, Mickey, we had a quick combo on at one point. We didn't really get to more satellites yet. And now, what does that even mean? But other than that, not really.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say one of the interesting parts of the evolution of the Chattanooga office in the past 6 years has been, the fact that when we opened, we were, a satellite office of VaynerMedia, but VaynerMedia is a full service advertising agency where works with some of the biggest brands in the world. And Chattanooga was definitely not like you're going there for a client, right? Like we were going there because this community attracted us and because there was entrepreneurs here that we believed in, and we felt like we could have an impact on the entrepreneurial ecosystem here. We weren't going here for a specific client. We had some clients in the area, 2-hour drive, to Knoxville, Atlanta. So we had some clients, and then we were able to build from there. But we were targeting larger companies in the Southeast, Dallas, Florida, places like that. That we were trying to work with bigger companies because that's the way the business model worked. But about a year, 2 years in of people coming up saying, I'd get a coffee meeting with someone and they say, our budget's $50,000 for marketing for the year. What can you do for me? And I said nothing. Like I'm sorry, we don't have an offering at that level. And after about a year of that, 2 years of that, me and Jesse and a few of the people here kind of went to Gary and said, we got to start selling something. And so we started doing some things on our own where we would, do trainings, or we would go and do some auditing and consulting and things like that. And our VaynerMedia COO, James Orsini at the time, kind of noticed some of those things and helped kind of guide us on, as he was thinking about kind of pulling together an offering with Gary for entrepreneurs, growth stage companies, challenger brands, the true kind of middle market and below. It made sense for kind of Chattanooga to be a part of that, because we were having so many business development conversations here locally, regionally, where we were leaving money on the table because we didn't have an offering to support a $250,000 budget. And that was the part of starting the Sasha Group was we need to be able to support that size of company, and it doesn't really fit in VaynerMedia's halls at the size and scale that VaynerMedia was at that time.
Exactly right.
Gary, where did the name Sasha Group come from, and why is it important to you?
It's named after my dad. His name's Sasha. Good Russian name. Needed a name. Feel like my small business. Mickey can tell you, like, I'm a businessman, and so that makes me different in meetings. And Mickey has seen me with the biggest brands in the world and the biggest titans in business, and with the smallest of small businesses. And I'd like to think, I don't want to lead the witness, but like my flexibility is high because it's how I've built my career. I can really chameleon every room. I'm just as comfortable talking to Sal about his one pizza shop in the suburbs of Detroit as I am with, Mark Benioff about Salesforce, right? I just really do believe I have that range, and I'm humbled and flattered and excited to. I do think that the SMB part has a little even extra flair for me because the impact is so extraordinary. One meeting with an SMB and giving them one good idea can really, change a lot for them. And so, I learned my SMB chops in my dad's liquor store, right? Where I did have a great impact. And I lived the hyperbole. I lived a business that was doing less than $4 million a year in revenue, which is a big small business, but without any VC money, and even without the benefit of having a credit line, I was able to explode that business in a very short period of time based on my macro hypothesis, which is if you do the best behavior of the second, if you're the best of the thing of this second, you get disproportionate returns on those investments from a marketing or operational or product offering standpoint. And so I named it after my dad. And the best part of that story is when I told my dad, his reaction was negative because my dad is a very cynical old Russian dude. And I think for the first couple hours, he was trying to figure out what the angle was and what was the downside risk. A few weeks later, he was proud. I think he's happy now. But that's why we named it that way. And it's been a really, really fruitful endeavor. It feels fun. The impact's extraordinary. I think about some of the stuff we've worked on. It's just, you're changing people's lives.
Well, and I love your fingerprints are all over that, right, Gary? And the fact that you bring the positivity. Well, maybe your dad is naturally pessimistic. It seems like you're naturally optimistic, not unaware of potential downside, but overall optimistic about the opportunity. And I'm curious, before you go here, what do you think is the big opportunity for the Unvalley? What kind of predictions would you make over the next 5-10 years for non-traditional tech hubs?
Well, I think we're going into the golden era. If you're in the Unvalley right now, you need to go ham and explain to people, like, why not live here? Here's a better tax situation. Here's more, look at all the yard you get for this price. Look how much the restaurants cost here. Look how epic the people are. And oh, by the way, I've had the best business year of my life. Professionally, I could have been anywhere in the world. I haven't left my home. Like my parents, like now things will go back to, we're not going to be in a global pandemic forever, thank God. But my behavior's changed. Like I don't need to get on a plane for one meeting in Chicago, get that crappy 6 a.m. Chicago flight that I have to wake up at 4:30 for, to have a meeting and then fly back and get home. Like that's a 1 hour meeting on Zoom now that even a 63-year-old corporate America executive is signed up for. The cat's out of the bag. This is if the Unvalley doesn't capitalize in this decade, then they need to temper their expectations.
I love that prediction, and I'm with you 100%. I think we're just at the beginning of the inflection point, and I know you've been predicting this for years. You predicted the exact target exit to Salesforce. I remember seeing that back in the day. before that even happened in 2013. I know I met you in Omaha, Nebraska, of all places, and I know you took time out of your day first thing in the morning this morning to be here with us. So, Gary, I want to thank you for being here and sharing some of the Vayner story with us.
I'm happy to be here. I'm glad to be a part of it. I love Mickey with all my heart. I'll let him take over the rest. Great to see everybody. We'll talk soon.
Good to see you, Gary. Thanks so much. And Mickey, I'm excited to go even deeper with you because I was biting my tongue because I knew we only had 30 minutes with Gary, but I'm eager to hear what it was like starting up a new office in Chattanooga. So many companies, so many people are looking at moving outside of, to Gary's point, more expensive locations that are more competitive for talent and just really don't provide the same quality of life and quality of business operation. What was it like coming into Chattanooga and setting up shop for the first time?
Yeah, I mean, it was, we picked Chattanooga specifically because of kind of the community and the entrepreneurial kind of ecosystem that was here and the people that make up that kind of culture. And so, for us, we were, had we gone to some other mid-sized markets, that weren't as excited about us coming, I think it might have been a little bit harder. And now, obviously, Gary's profile has raised tremendously in the past 6 years, so that probably would have changed a little bit. But in 2015, still relatively, his profile wasn't as high back then as it is now. And so, for me, it was, going out and we were our office was free for the first year because they wanted us here. And so for us, it was about all right, how can I making connections and showing people that we're not here for any other reason than to try to bring value to this community and grow it. And so the other, the things that we, the challenges that we kind of thought about, we had kind of pre-planned for, right? So in terms of a huge advertising marketing market, there are some great agencies here, agencies that do national work, agencies that do local work, regional work. There's some good talent here, but it's not the biggest talent pool to pull from. And so that was part of the reason why we brought 10 people down, for an office to be 15 people to start. And so we made some of those first hires more at the junior levels, the folks that were kind of starting out in their careers, the kind of 0 to 4 years of experience. And we did that strategically because we knew all right, we'll bring the folks that are kind of the more middle level and talent down from New York to help for the culture question we talked about earlier. And then over time, if we've had to hire a senior level person here, it maybe takes us a little bit more time. And so we just have to factor into that. And now, what's changed over the past year is that now we're more open to there being, people being remote, kind of connected to the Chattanooga office. So we now have 2 or 3 employees that are connected to the Chattanooga office of Sasha Group South, but that live in North Carolina, that live in Colorado, that live in Illinois, things like that. And so we're more open to that now. Now, obviously, as we start to go back, we'll probably see if folks can at least, be closer to here and things like that. But we're going to remain flexible and open on that front. So talent was definitely something that we had to consider and we had to have a thoughtful plan about. And then business development. But business development for us is obviously a little bit different, right? Because of who he is and because of the profile he's got. And so, in the early years, it was a lot about if there was someone in if there was a business development opportunity that came to Gary and it was in somewhere around the Midwest or the Southeast, he looped me in, or his team looped me in almost immediately, and we would be having conversations. Gary would kick it off, and then it would be on me and the team to kind of pull it through. And he would obviously be helping there to kind of make sure it gets closed. But after that kind of first initial meeting, it was on the back of our office to kind of get it up and running. Now, some of my favorite parts of kind of being in Chattanooga and being in a market that maybe didn't know Gary as much, and that we had to go and earn new business on our own too. And so, I don't think when I was in New York, there wasn't one piece of business that we won that Gary didn't lead, that Gary didn't have some sort of connection to. Maybe, I can't think of one really in those early years of 2011 to 15 when I was in the New York office, but I can, several clients here that even in our VaynerMedia Chattanooga days, we were we brought in on our own. And now as the Sasha Group, we do that all the time. Now, what the great part about the Sasha Group is we have offerings that include Gary's time in them. And so people are coming to us, they can still get access to Gary, as well as, the access to what we bring at the Sasha Group.
Well, and I want to talk about one of those opportunities here before we end, but I'd like to pull on that thread about Chattanooga just a little bit more, because obviously right now, to Gary's point, like this is the Unvalley's moment, right? In a lot of ways, people are seeing it organically. People are making that move. Venture capital is making that move, which of course, 80% of every venture round goes to hiring and attracting talent. So it is a big opportunity, and all of the cities right now are trying to figure out, well, how do we be the place that this remote worker works? Or how do we be the place where this company relocates their headquarters, like JobVite did here to Indianapolis recently? How can cities attract the right talent and attract the right companies, and maybe even include some examples of what Chattanooga did to attract you?
Yeah. So for the way we think about it, and I can't maybe speak for everyone, but the way I think about it, and my role is on the chamber board and collab board and enterprise center and things like that, is let's identify our assets and double down on those strengths. So our assets here in Chattanooga we have the fastest internet in the Western Hemisphere. Like, that's not hyperbole. It is literally, the local utility over 10, 12 years ago, company called EBP, that provides power to, everyone here as a utility, put in a 600 square miles of a fiber optic network to create a smart grid, so that if power went off at your house, it could be redirected from my house to yours on the smart grid and get you back up quickly. Now, as they were building that, they realized, well, we have this fiber. We could also provide internet and internet services and fiber optic internet services. And so that they put that in. And so, now that's, we have up to 10 gig speed offering that you can have, to residents anywhere in kind of the footprint. So let's leverage that. And that's, the entrepreneurial community has definitely rallied around, like, this is a flag that we can carry, so let's carry it. Additionally, we have a long history in Chattanooga of entrepreneurship, but also in the logistics space. So, two of the largest trucking companies are based in Chattanooga, and US Express and Covenant Transport. And that industry, specifically the kind of freight, logistics, transportation, supply chain industry, we've had a ton of growth over the past 10 years around entrepreneurs building around that talent and building around the tech opportunities that brings. Some of our, Ted Alling, who I mentioned earlier, was the entrepreneur who he was like, if there's one person who's responsible for recruiting us down, it's Ted and his team. Ted built a $500 million revenue business in Chattanooga, Tennessee, doing freight brokerage, and then sold that to Coyote, who then sold to UPS in a transaction. And Ted's been pouring that money back into the community, and along with his partners and the team there. And so now there's probably 10 companies that have come out of that through venture capital investments that he's did, or through the talent that was part of that Access America team that has now started Steam Logistics and Reliance Partners, which is kind of insurance for logistics and things like that. And so, and those companies are now $50, $100 million revenue companies. And so we've kind of found, freight. There's an entrepreneur named Craig. Oh God, what's Craig's last name?
Fuller.
Craig Fuller. Sorry, Craig.
He was a speaker at the last Unvalley, actually.
Yeah, Craig Fuller, who started a kind of the Bloomberg of freight, in the freight industry, FreightWaves, which covers the freight industry in a very editorial way, but then also has a SaaS product built on top of that provides data to anyone that needs kind of a look at the freight industry. And Craig kind of has pushed this as we're a freight alley, and it's certainly something that, so betting on taking a look at our assets and then doubling down on those, and then knowing that, like, we're not going to be Silicon Valley, we're not even probably be Nashville, we're not going to be Austin, we're not going to be Miami. How can we be Chattanooga that we are? And so that means addressing the things that are still challenges here. That means addressing kind of equality and inclusion and diversity issues. It means addressing education and public schools and early childhood education. It means addressing the environmental challenges and things like that. We are in a city that's known for kind of its hiking and kind of just natural beauty. And so I think if you're from a mid-sized market and you're trying to think about how do we attract talent and businesses, it's identify your strengths, double down on them, and then have a plan for how you're going to address the things that, when people come. I mean, Gary mentioned the flight, a real thing. I've connected through Charlotte and Atlanta so many times, and we do it because we kind of knew that was going to be a cost of doing business if we were going to come here. Is that there was not a direct flight at the time from New York to Chattanooga, and that was something we were going to have to deal with. But there's things like that are going to put you at a disadvantage to other markets, and so it's how do you have a kind of a plan and show that the pros outweigh the cons.
You had so many actionable nuggets there, and I'm glad you recapped some of them there. One of the things that stood out to me was you said we're not trying to be Silicon Valley or New York City. And I love that you say that, because that's literally where the term Unvalley came from. It's not anti-Valley, right? We love Silicon Valley. We've got investors in Silicon Valley. We've got talent in Silicon Valley that work for the tech companies in the middle of the country. Unvalley I actually stole it from the Uncola, which is how 7-Up branded itself. We're not trying to be another Coke. We're a different thing. We're the Unvalley. And I think the cities that are doing that, and to your point, playing off the strengths while also thinking about, okay, what are the drawbacks, and how can we have a realistic plan to address some of those. And
the other thing that Chattanooga has is we truly celebrate entrepreneurship and entrepreneurs. So, there is it's a small, like I said, it's a big, small town. So there's, if you're an entrepreneur and you come here, you meet with one person, you're going to meet with 6 people coming out of that meeting, because they're going to say, oh, you're doing this, you should meet this person. And that is something that there's a bit of mentality of rising tides lift all boats here, that everyone is genuinely rooting for everyone else's success. And so how do we make sure that we're connecting people and connecting resources? Because the faster that all of us are having success, the more we're going to all benefit from it. So, I think that is such a key part of kind of the DNA of the people of Chattanooga, but it's something that we have to continue to cultivate and make sure, and I think other cities can as well. And so if you don't look at it as hey, holding things so close to the vest and looking at it as competition, and instead looking at it as, hey, there's going to be an awesome company that's going to come here. I mean, probably multiple times per year, I get asked to go meet with companies that are evaluating Chattanooga as a potential place to come and tell the story about why we're here. And I'm happy to do that, because that means more talent's going to come to this town. That means more investment's going to come to this town, and that there's going to be more opportunities. Of course, I'm going to give my time to go take a 30-minute coffee with someone and tell them about why we believe in Chattanooga and what we're doing here and what the talent is here, and what are some of those things, and what are those strategies that you need to have in place to kind of maximize the opportunity here.
Well, and that hyper connectivity is part of what made Silicon Valley.
Yeah,
back when we were limited by geography, and we didn't have Zoom, and we couldn't get on a plane or a direct flight to somewhere. And the fact that you're doing that in Chattanooga, all of these cities are getting better and better at that, but we can also do that collectively. And that's what we're doing today. I see Alden from Kansas City here, and I saw someone from Cincinnati, and I saw some folks from Charlotte and Westfield, Indiana. So I love that note to kind of wrap up on, or at least transition, because I do want to talk about a couple of the opportunities with Sasha Group. But that hyperconnectivity, I want to emphasize that for everyone who's kicking off on Valley with us here today, because there's so much opportunity to help be the connective tissue and create that hyperconnectivity over the next 2 days. Hopping into the booths, jumping into some of the speed networking, where it's like chat roulette. It's a new person every time, except everyone's working in tech from around the world. Or even scheduling meetings with people. There's so many opportunities to do that, and I'm so glad you called that out, Mickey.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's got to be. We've got to all collectively kind of root for each other's success and then band together, because that's it's the Steve Case rise of the rest kind of opportunity.
100%. Together, we will definitely continue to rise. You and your team at Sasha Group put together some amazing packages that I think are really relevant to Powderkeg, and the fact that you put a session together specifically for the Unvalley folks here today and tomorrow is pretty awesome. We talk a little bit about the 4Ds. I know Gary brushed over it briefly, but I mean, the fact that Gary spends 90 minutes in each one of these sessions, I would think any CEO, any marketing leader, anyone really looking to take their business to the next level would benefit from it. I'm certainly going to participate in one of them. Yeah. How did this whole 4Ds thing come about?
Yeah, so when we launched the Sasha Group, 4Ds was something that had already we were incubating within VaynerMedia, but we knew to have an offering that could add value to entrepreneurs, growth stage companies, and challenger brands, that we had to do more than just marketing execution. And so we launched some consulting services, and we launched some educational services as well. And 4Ds is kind of the flagship of those educational services. It was originally, when we started in 2017, it was originally a full 1 day in person. You'd come to VaynerMedia office and you'd kind of get a look under the hood for a day, where it's a small group. So there's 8 to 12 people in that room. You would visit with kind of bunch of different departments. You'd have leaders come in and talk about kind of how the sausage gets made from VaynerMedia's and VaynerX's kind of perspective. And the pandemic happened. We obviously can't host those in person anymore, or at least we haven't been able to the past 4. And so we launched a virtual version of it, which is 4 hours instead of 10. It's got kind of what are the 4 really key sessions. We've got kind of one on platform strategy, one on creative strategy, one on kind of content development, and then an hour to 90 minutes with Gary, where 6 to 8 people in the room, and you get to ask usually 10 minutes worth of questions about your business to Gary. And he talked about kind of, his favorite thing to do is be in those sessions, because he knows that one idea executed properly can really change some of these businesses. And we've seen it happen where, people have come into 4Ds and they've taken kind of some of the learnings and the playbook from those sessions and exponentially grown their company from it. And so, we've, the 4Ds that we have, we've got a booth set up later today. Joe Quattrone, who's kind of our head of education, will be there with his team that runs the programs, that 4Ds. We are talking about hey, can we put together a 4Ds that's just for Unvalley participants and things like that. We also, in the past year, launched another option, which is another educational offering, which is called Stork. It's kind of the best way to stay up on social and digital marketing and brand building. It's a private kind of email and Facebook group where we deliver weekly videos on kind of the best and the latest and greatest on social and digital marketing and brand building. So there's a video that comes, a 5 to 10 minute video that comes out on Monday. Articles come out on Wednesday related to it, and then there's a Q&A, kind of ask me anything, on Friday with the person who kind of developed that video. And so it's access to kind of leaders at the Sasha Group, folks in our network. We bring in experts and things like that as well. And so, there's we've really seen it kind of unlock just a ton of value. And then now there's a network of a community of people that are, I think that's another great part. Stork has got 400 plus members now that are, it's $300 for the year, and I think we've even got a discount code for folks that are coming from Unvalley. So for $25 a month or less with this discount code, you're getting access to a library of marketing material. So we kind of call it a membership for that reason, because we've got over 50 videos in the library, and we'll be adding more every week. And then you've got a network that you're connected with of entrepreneurs who are maybe, facing similar challenges in a similar industry or related industry. And that's part of what we do, is we connect people within that kind of community and say, hey, here's people that have maybe had to solve for that, so go talk to them. So between our 40s alumni, our Stork members, we have a really nice network of folks that are the same places that a lot of entrepreneurs are, and are people that can be learning from one another, and we're there to help facilitate that and bring value in as many ways as we can.
I really appreciate you putting that together. I mean, the fact that you're even discounting a $300 a year program for Powderkeg Unvalley is really generous, because I mean, the value there is just 100x. I mean, I took a look at the program. I want to get one for my head of community and one for my head of marketing, just because there's so much there and so much to be learned from the people in that community that you've put together. And we're definitely seeing the power of community today. And I'm excited to bring some of those folks who are interested in doing the 4Ds together for a session with you and with Gary, just to really help kind of take our businesses to the next level as we have this huge opportunity on the Unvalley, as you and Gary pointed out here over the last 45 minutes or so. So I want to thank you, Mickey, for being here, bringing the thunder, bringing Gary, and sharing some of that story of the move to the mighty middle. Way before anyone was talking about it in the New York Times or in TechCrunch. So I knew that you would be the right people to kick off Unvalley here with us this morning. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Matt, and excited to kind of connect with folks over the next 2 days.
Absolutely. Likewise. Well, I'm gonna share a couple of details here. Thank you, Mickey. I know Mickey will be in the chat. I know he'll be connecting with folks. So definitely drop him a note there in the chat. I want to make sure I do give a shout out to Mickey's company, Sasha Group. Sasha Group is a VaynerX company, and they do some pretty amazing things. As Mickey just pointed out, the 4Ds and Stork being two great examples. But the company was launched by Vaynerchuk and Mickey Cloud under the VaynerX brand, and it's definitely infused with Gary's entrepreneurial DNA, as you just heard. They're here really to mentor, brand, and market entrepreneurs, funded startups, and mature SMBs through explosive growth. So definitely check out their booth and connect with them in the expo area. I also want to give a huge shout out to our friends at CLA. They are one of the top 10 professional services firms in the country. They're experts in helping tech companies with hiring, talent search, and finances. They're literally our outsourced CFO. They helped us create our model. They helped us predict and fuel our growth. So definitely check out their booths. I just wanted to give those two organizations a quick shout out before I shift gears and show you something that we've been working on. So as we wrap up this session, I wanted to give you kind of a sneak peek. As you're going through things here today, I wanted to shift over to my screen share here again. Drop a note in chat if you can see that, because I'm working on multiple computers, multiple screens here. But I wanted to point out that lots of companies represented here today and tomorrow, literally more than 80 speakers. We've got 30 plus exhibitors for you to plug in with. We actually have almost 2,500 companies here in the Powderkeg Tech Culture Directory. And so these are companies in the mighty middle, in the Unvalley, and they're doing remarkable things from Indianapolis, from Chattanooga, from Austin, from Miami. And so each one of these, you can go in, learn a little bit more about the company, specifically what makes them tick. This is stuff you're not going to find on Crunchbase or on AngelList. This is directly from the people who work there and make that company great. You can learn how much funding they have, how big their team is, what their core values are. Of course, lots of photos and videos, awards they've won through the Powderkeg ecosystem, all the similar companies. So when you have a break, when you're looking at things this evening and wanting to check out, what was that company? What did they do? There's lots of information here in the Powderkeg Tech Culture Directory. So I just wanted to point that out to you. I'm pointing out here that you can see all the perks and benefits, all the product. And also there's lots and lots of jobs. So definitely check this out if you or a friend is looking to plug into the massive opportunity in tech between the coasts, because there's just a lot here. We've actually put together a lot of company collections as well. So these are top rated companies. This example here I'm showing is top rated companies for diversity, equity, and inclusion. These were rated by the Powderkeg community during our last Tech Culture Awards, which I'll have an exciting announcement about that tomorrow. But lots of great insight here about why diversity, equity, inclusion is important. So our whole community really powers all of our content, all of these resources. And I just want to make sure you know that they're available to you, because as you meet new people from new companies, you can go in here. And of course, if you don't have a profile yet, it's absolutely free to do so. So definitely claim a profile, set that up if you haven't done that yet. And then the last thing I want to point out is we actually have culture profiles for cities as well. So it's pretty exciting that you can now go and explore these different cities. So if you want to know what Indianapolis is about, what it's like to plug into the tech scene, we've got a lot of information for you here, all the media outlets you can plug into, what it's like to actually work here in terms of the opportunities, what's average salary, how many jobs are there, what are some of the award-winning companies in each of these categories. So it's a cool way to explore and plug into these markets, which again, I think on this session alone, I saw Charlotte, Cincinnati, Kansas City, Indianapolis. Of course, Gary was in from New York City. So this is a great place to plug in and learn just a little bit more what it's like to live and work in these tech ecosystems. So awesome opportunity here to plug in. And then I also wanted to show you something that we haven't shown to many people, but quietly over the last 2 years, we've really been experimenting with a new piece of software that I just wanted to make sure you knew that you could get value out of. And this is in response to the just massive increase in interest that we saw with the shift in the pandemic. We have had literally thousands of people join Powderkeg who want to plug into the tech opportunities beyond Silicon Valley, beyond New York City, whether that's in their hometown or a place that has more of what they're looking for. If it's music, Nashville is a great city. Obviously, there's great music in most cities. If you're into the food scene, Kansas City has amazing things to offer. And so we launched this program called Matches, and it's powered by our software that we put together. And what it is that it's a job matching platform, and it takes all of those assets that I just showed you, the culture directory, the city directory, the culture profiles for the companies, and gives you the ability to plug in to the Powderkeg community in a way that is relevant to you. So here's how it works. We actually looked at what is the number one source of great matches when it comes to joining a tech company. And what we found out of surveying literally thousands of people in our community, the number one source of great matches of talent to company is from internal referrals. And that makes sense, right? When it comes to aligning on values, when it comes to fitting the role with the skills that are necessary to complete the role, internal network makes a ton of sense. But the problem is scaling tech companies can't scale from internal networks alone. And so that's where we've layered the Powderkeg network on top of this. And this is where you can really help be part of that connective tissue that Mickey was just talking about. We literally have 10,000 plus professionals and growing from diverse pipelines. So the community is referring us these talented tech professionals. And it's because Powderkeg can help them get matched to a tech company in the middle of the country, whether that is in Chattanooga or in Austin or in Miami or in Charlotte. And it's because we have all these data points for these 2,500 plus companies and the thousands of jobs at those companies that we're able to match. And so here's how that works. When someone gets referred to us, we're able to take them through an onboarding process where we understand what their ideal role is, what their desired benefits are, where they're trying to go with their career, and what's most important to them in terms of core values and leadership style at that company. What we're able to do then on the back end is, based on their preferences, match them to the companies in the Powderkeg network that match their preferences. So whether that is being in Indianapolis or having a specific salary range or being an award-winning company in a particular category, this is just an amazing opportunity for people to discover companies that are a good fit for them. And we've literally made thousands of matches here over the last year as this big shift has happened. So a candidate gets to review all of their matches. Ultimately, they'll get to pick the ones that they want an introduction to. We make an introduction to decision makers at that company. And ultimately, they're able to join a company where they can grow and scale their tech career. And we do it all also reducing hiring bias at the same time and protecting the identity of the candidate. So even if you're in a full-time role or your friend is in a full-time role and they want to be able to look at job opportunities without disclosing that they're on the market, where they get to make the first move, this is what we designed Matches for. And it's been so rewarding to make those connections. And I want to thank everybody who's helped make a referral or make a connection or bring a new company on that is profiling their culture, viewing their culture matches, and connecting and hiring. It's just been a really cool experience, and I do want you to be able to plug in. We've got a booth in the expo where if you're interested in plugging in to Matches and trying it out, it's absolutely free to do so, and would love to get you hooked up with a job that you love. All right, I'm going to wrap things up here on the intro keynote, but there are a couple important things that I think you should know. So first of all, want to give a huge shout out to our friends at 1150. 1150 is a 501c3 nonprofit and cybersecurity academy that believes in impacting the lives of students by providing relevant coding skills for the most in-demand jobs in today's tech ecosystems. I'll be having a fireside chat with their founder, Scott Jones, today after lunch, so definitely join for that. And then I also want to give a huge shout out to the Kelley School of Business. IU Kelley School of Business is actually where I graduated from. They're top 10 nationally ranked as an MBA program, including the online MBA and the evening MBA. So definitely tune in to their amazing podcast, the ROI podcast. And we're actually going to be recording a live episode tomorrow with Max Yoder, CEO of Lessonly. So definitely check that out. All right, it's it. This is it. It's 10 a.m. We've got 3 different places where you can plug into right now. First off is Nick Sieglin, head of enterprise at Rise Science. He's going to be talking about the power of sleep and what that can do for your company. I am excited to check this out. I'll also be jumping in on the session with Lindsay Chepkema. She is the CEO and co-founder of Casted. She'll be joining Frank Gruber, who is a longtime podcaster, founder of Startup of the Year, established. They're going to be talking about the power of audio and podcasting, Clubhouse, all of those good things. And then finally, Rye Walker, founder and CEO of Astronomer out of Cincinnati. They're going to be talking a lot about AI, machine learning. And so if that's something you're interested in, it's starting right now. So that's it. Go, plug in, scale, make connections. That's what Unvalley is all about. Obviously, there's a help desk for you if you need it right there in the expo hall. Please make sure you introduce yourself in the event reception. If you haven't done that already, say hi to people who already have. Take our live polls, check out the virtual expo, schedule meetings with other attendees, and use that networking feature. It's a lot of fun. So if you want to get connected to lots of people really quickly, it's a great way to do it. But right now, go to the next session. It's happening right now with Rye, Lindsay, and Nick.